They're not texting you. They're not calling. They might even look like they've moved on. But here's the truth they'll never admit. They still think about you, constantly, and the more they try to bury those thoughts, the louder they get. Avoidant exes are masters of pretending not to care. They'll put on a calm face, post like everything's fine, maybe even flirt with someone new. But behind that mask, they're spiraling. Because what they thought they could detach from so easily, you, keeps showing up in their mind when they least expect it. And here's the twist. It's not your texts, your absence, or even your silence that haunts them. It's something deeper, something they felt but couldn't process when they were with you. As Sigmund Freud once said, unexpressed emotions will never die. They are buried alive and will come forth later in uglier ways. That's exactly what's happening now. They didn't leave because you weren't enough. They left because you were getting too close. You saw parts of them they've spent their entire life hiding, and that terrified them. But now that you're gone, they're stuck, reliving the connection they tried so hard to avoid. You see, most people think an avoidant ex stops caring the moment they walk away, that they're cold, heartless, distant. But the truth is, the detachment is a defense, not a lack of emotion. They're not thinking less about you. They're thinking about you more than ever. They're just trying to outrun it. Think of it like this. You can't run away from your own mind, said R.D. Laying, and avoidants eventually find that out the hard way. When the distractions wear off and the silence becomes deafening, they're left alone with the very feelings they refuse to face. And your presence is right there, echoing in their thoughts. This video is going to unpack exactly why your avoidant ex can't stop thinking about you, and it's not what you think. We'll go deep into the emotional wiring of avoidance, the psychological triggers that are haunting them now, and how your energy is still affecting them even if they haven't said a word. So stay with me until the very end, because this insight doesn't just give you clarity, it gives you power. Once you understand what's truly going on in their mind, you stop blaming yourself, and you start reclaiming your peace. If you're ready to stop wondering and start understanding, make sure to like this video, hit that subscribe button, and drop a comment below that says, I am unforgettable. That's not ego, it's truth. Because if you were once connected to an avoidant, chances are you made a deeper impact than they'll ever admit. Let's dive in. What you're about to learn will completely reframe how you see their silence and your own power. Reason number 1. You activated their deepest fear, emotional intimacy. You might be wondering why someone who pushed you away, who seemed so indifferent, now can't stop thinking about you. It seems backwards, right? But here's the truth that most people never realize. Avoidants don't fear losing people. They fear needing people. And when you came into their life, you didn't just show up with love, you brought closeness, real closeness. And that scared them more than rejection ever could. Avoidant attachment isn't about being heartless. It's about self-protection. These are people who, often from childhood, learned that emotional closeness either leads to pain, abandonment, or feeling trapped. So they build walls, maintain distance, and learn to rely on themselves. But then you came along and cracked that armor. You showed them consistency, care, emotional safety, and whether they admit it or not, they started to let their guard down. At first, it might have felt good to them, safe, even exciting. But then something happened. They started to feel vulnerable, exposed, dependent, That's when the fear kicked in. Because for someone avoidant, emotional intimacy equals risk. And when you gave them the kind of connection that required showing up, being emotionally present, being seen, they subconsciously panicked. As Brené Brown puts it, vulnerability sounds like truth and feels like courage. Truth and courage aren't always comfortable, but they're never weakness. Your emotional presence felt like pressure to them, not because you were asking too much, but because their system was wired to equate closeness with danger. So, what did they do? They pulled away. They shut down. Maybe they even blamed you or created distance for no obvious reason. But here's the part they never saw coming. That fear doesn't erase the connection. In fact, once they're alone, once the noise dies down and you're no longer in their life, they start thinking, replaying, obsessing, not just over the good times, but over how deeply they felt seen by you, and how that still lingers, even when you're gone. They might try to distract themselves, jump into another connection, bury their emotions in work or social media, but it won't last. Because what you gave them wasn't surface level. You touched something deep inside of them, a place they try to avoid at all costs. And once someone reaches that part of them, it's almost impossible to forget. Now they're stuck in a cycle, drawn to you in their mind, but afraid to reach out. You live in the space between their longing and their fear. That tension creates mental obsession. That's why they can't stop thinking about you, even if they're pretending not to care. So, no, it wasn't that you were too much. It was that you were exactly what they always wanted, but didn't know how to receive. And now that you're gone, that realization is louder than ever. Reason number 2. You didn't chase them, and that shattered their control. One of the most powerful reasons your avoidant ex can't stop thinking about you is this. You didn't chase them. You didn't blow up their phone, beg for answers, or try to force closure. You chose distance. You chose silence. And that move, it completely disrupted their sense of control. Avoidant individuals often expect a very specific pattern after a breakup. They pull away and you chase. You reach out. You try to fix things. That reaction gives them reassurance. They still feel desired, important, in control of the emotional dynamic. It protects their ego while keeping you at arm's length. But when you don't do any of that, you flip the script. As Tony Robbins once said, when you are no longer willing to tolerate something, that's when change begins. Your refusal to chase wasn't just strength, it was transformation. It sent a message they didn't expect. I don't need you to validate my worth. That subtle act of emotional self-respect broke their framework. And now they're stuck wondering why you aren't reacting the way they anticipated. Here's the part they won't admit. Your silence makes them feel powerless. See, avoidants fear emotional dependency, but they also crave control. They want to dictate the pace, the terms, and the emotions. But when you didn't show up the way they hoped, they lost the upper hand. Suddenly, they're the ones waiting, thinking, obsessing. This kind of silence isn't passive, it's loud. It forces them to sit with their own discomfort. It forces them to question their choices. It forces them to wonder, why didn't they chase me? Did they stop caring? What if I meant more to them than I realized, and now I've lost them for good? That emotional confusion becomes mental fixation. The more they try to understand your detachment, the more they think about you. Because now, They're not just dealing with missing you, they're dealing with the mystery of you. And nothing haunts the avoidant mind more than a connection they thought they had control over. Slipping through their fingers. So yes, reason number 2. They can't stop thinking about you because you left them in silence, and that silence became the loudest thing they've ever heard. Reason number 3. You represent unfinished emotional business. Another shocking reason your avoidant ex can't stop thinking about you, because to them your relationship didn't really end. Not emotionally, anyway. Sure, there was a breakup, maybe even cold words or distant silence. But deep down, you represent unfinished business, emotionally, psychologically, and energetically. Avoidants are notorious for leaving without true closure. They might ghost, withdraw, or give a vague explanation like, "I just need space," or "I don't know what I want." But the truth is, they didn't want to face the depth of what they were feeling, so they left the relationship emotionally open-ended. And that emotional door? It's still wide open in their mind. Famous psychoanalyst Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." That's what's happening to your ex. They tried to bury the connection, suppress the feelings, and act like it didn't matter. But because they never processed what actually happened between you, your memory keeps resurfacing. And here's where it gets deeper. Your emotional bond with them wasn't resolved. It was interrupted. That means their mind is still trying to make sense of it, still trying to close the loop. That's why they keep thinking about you at night. That's why random songs, places, or smells bring them back to you. Their brain keeps circling back to the moment they disconnected, searching for resolution. Avoidants often think distance will solve their discomfort. But emotional energy doesn't just disappear, it lingers. And because you were likely one of the few people who saw beneath their surface, that bond left a residue, one they can't scrub off, no matter how hard they try to suppress it. They might not be conscious of all this. They may not sit there saying, "I have unresolved emotional patterns." But the result is the same. They're haunted by what wasn't said, what wasn't finished, and what wasn't faced. You're not just a memory, you're a mirror. A reminder of the connection they couldn't fully receive and the feelings they ran from. So, reason number 3, because you are the chapter they never truly closed. So now it keeps replaying on a loop in their mind. Reason number 4, your growth is forcing them to rethink everything. Here's something your avoidant ex didn't expect: you leveling up. They thought you'd stay stuck. They assumed you'd wait, chase, or crumble. But instead, you evolved. You healed. You refocused on yourself. And now, your glow-up is messing with their head. Avoidant types thrive on emotional distance and predictability. They like to think they know how you'll react, especially when they leave. But when you chose self-respect over desperation, self-love over longing, and growth over grief, that shook something in them. Now they're forced to ask questions they've been avoiding. Was I wrong about them? Did I underestimate their strength? What if they're actually happier without me? As Oprah Winfrey once said, the whole point of being alive is to evolve into the complete person you were intended to be. And that's exactly what you're doing. Your healing journey, your calm energy, your success, whether it's personal, emotional, or even physical, is now a reflection of everything they didn't expect from you. And it gets worse for them. Because the more you rise, the more they realize that they were the one holding you back. They're watching you embody peace, confidence, clarity, things they couldn't handle when they had you. And that creates one thing avoidants deeply struggle with: shame. Now, you're not just the one they dated. You've become the one that got away and grew without them. And that image? It doesn't go away. It eats at them. Because as much as avoidants pretend not to care, they're always watching. They may not like your photos or comment on your wins, but trust this, they see it, and it's making them rethink everything. So, reason number 4, they can't stop thinking about you, because the version of you they feared losing is nowhere near as powerful as the version of you they're watching evolve now, and that realization is haunting them daily. Reason number 5, you triggered real emotions, and that's rare for them. Avoidant exes aren't emotionless. They're just emotionally guarded. And most of the time, they float through relationships without fully engaging. They keep things surface level, they keep people at a distance, and they avoid deep emotional entanglement like it's the plague. But with you, something was different. You got past the walls. You didn't just touch their life, you touched their emotions. And that's something they don't experience often, or forget easily. You see, most avoidants are used to relationships where they can keep control. They give just enough to keep the connection alive, but not enough to feel vulnerable. Then you came along and flipped their world upside down. You made them feel, and not just comfort or affection, you made them feel seen, connected, maybe even safe. That kind of emotional intensity is incredibly rare for someone with an avoidant attachment style. As Maya Angelou once said, "People will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." That's exactly what's happening with your ex. They might forget the arguments, they might block out the breakup, but they cannot forget how you made them feel, especially because those feelings were so unfamiliar, so raw, and so real. And here's the twist. Those emotions didn't disappear when they walked away. They didn't hit a reset button and go back to being numb. In fact, the more they try to detach, the more those feelings linger. Why? Because their brain and their heart are still trying to process an emotional experience they've never fully allowed before. You stirred something they've spent years trying to avoid. This is why they can't just move on, even if it looks like they have, even if they're dating someone else, even if they act indifferent. Because deep down there's a storm inside them, one filled with confusion, desire, fear and longing. And at the center of it all, you. So reason number 5, your avoidant ex can't stop thinking about you. Because you didn't just enter their life, you awakened emotions they've never fully faced, and no matter how far they run, they can't unfeel what you made them feel. Reason number 6, their coping mechanisms are starting to fail. Avoidants are pros at pretending they're fine. They convince themselves that detachment is strength, that ignoring their feelings is maturity, and that moving on means distracting themselves with anything but you. But here's the problem. Those coping mechanisms, they don't last. And when they start to crack, that's when the obsessive thinking about you kicks into overdrive. In the beginning, they might feel empowered after pulling away. They dive into work, scroll endlessly on social media, hang out with friends, maybe even rebound with someone else. They do everything they can to outrun the emotional aftermath. But eventually, the distractions wear off. The conversations get boring. The nights get quiet. The fake confidence fades. And what's left? You, and all the emotions they tried so hard to avoid. As the great philosopher Søren Kierkegaard said, "The most common form of despair is not being who you are." And when your avoidant ex realizes that all their running, masking and avoiding hasn't brought them peace, it brings them back to the source of those deep feelings, you. Not because you're the cause of their pain, but because you represent the emotional depth they're still afraid to confront. Now they're stuck. The habits that once worked, ghosting, emotional suppression, staying busy, don't numb the thoughts like they used to. In fact, they're making things worse. Why? Because avoidance isn't healing, it's postponing. And the more they delay processing what happened with you, the heavier it weighs on their mind. This is where the thinking becomes intrusive. They replay old conversations. They overanalyze your last message. They stalk your social media without engaging. You become the ghost they can't escape, not because you're haunting them, but because they never faced the feelings you left behind. So, reason number 6. Because the emotional escape routes they've always relied on are starting to collapse. And now, they're left alone with the one thing they were trying to avoid all along, their feelings for you. Reason number 7. They realized too late that you were safe. Love. Perhaps the most painful and shocking realization of all comes after everything else. They finally recognized that what you gave them was rare, genuine, and safe, but only after you're gone. Avoidants often confuse intensity with danger. When someone loves them deeply, when someone gets close, it doesn't feel comforting at first. It feels threatening. They associate love with losing independence, with getting hurt, or with having to show parts of themselves they've long kept buried. So what do? They push it away. They push you away. But now, with time and distance, they start to see things differently. The chaos has quieted. The distractions are fading. And what's left behind is clarity, the kind that hurts. They realize you didn't want to control them. You weren't trying to smother them, and you didn't want them to be perfect. You just wanted connection, stability, realness. As the brilliant bell Hooks once wrote, "Love is an action, never simply a feeling." And now, your avoidant ex is finally beginning to understand the difference between the people who made them feel temporarily excited and the one who showed up with love that was safe, consistent, grounded. The problem? They realized it too late. And nothing eats away at an avoidant more than knowing they ran from the one thing they've secretly always wanted: real love that didn't hurt. The memory of that safety, the comfort in your energy, the way you gave them space and support. They can't shake it. Now, they're haunted by the thought that they didn't just lose someone, they lost peace. They lost the person who made them feel understood without pressure. They lost the one who saw their wounds and didn't run. And no one else feels like that. No one else is like that. So, reason number 7, because they finally realized you weren't a threat to their freedom. You were a bridge to their healing. And now that they see it, they can't stop thinking about what they gave up. So now you know, the real reason your avoidant ex can't stop thinking about you has nothing to do with luck, timing, or chance. It has everything to do with the impact you made, the emotions you awakened, and the safe space you offered. even when they didn't know how to receive it. You see, avoidants aren't heartless. They're guarded. But your presence cracked through that armor, and while they may have pulled away in fear, the truth is, you've stayed in their mind ever since. Not because you chased them, but because you didn't. Not because you begged, but because you walked away with self-respect. That silence, that strength, it echoed louder than any words ever could. As Rumi said, don't get lost in your pain. Know that one day, your pain will become your cure. And for your avoidant ex, that's exactly what's happening. The very love they ran from is now the memory they can't escape. And whether they ever admit it or not, they felt it. Deeply. But this isn't just about them. It's about you. This is your moment to reclaim your energy, your confidence, and your peace. Because the longer they sit with the echoes of your love, the louder the truth becomes. You were never the problem. You were the light. If this video helped you see things more clearly, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, because you deserve real, empowering answers. And drop this in the comments. I was the calm in their chaos. Let that be your mantra, your reminder, and your power. You didn't lose them. They lost you. And now, they finally know it. Until next time, keep shining.